Well, hello, everybody. I feel like you were supposed to say hello, too.
Why don't you tell me that?
You're just supposed to kind of go with it.
She feels unnatural.
That's because it's the first time. All right, so clearly, this is the first time that we're trying something like this. So we are kind of doing a whole marketing campaign right now for promoting the movie.
Yeah.
And so we're putting out a whole bunch of content, which includes like short form stuff that's going up on Instagram. And then we're going to do some YouTube videos because just like we said in our previous video, we really want to do everything we can to sell out the movie theater. So we thought it'd be really fun to kind of recount some of our best stories and some things that never really made like social media or on a YouTube video, but just some of the fun stuff that we've done, or even talking about some of the stuff that we did do, but going in more detail about it.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite moments, memories?
I'd probably say, I think my favorite memory obviously would have to be adopting Bubba. Actually, I think my favorite filming memory was when we finally found sheep.
Oh, because finding sheep was big for filming. Adopting Bubba and just meeting Bubba for the first time and just being like, uh-oh, do we need this man?
Yeah, because I don't know how much we went into detail in the videos that we filmed about it. But we showed up to Tiffany's in November. It was like right after Thanksgiving. We were still working with that private jet company, so they gave us a free flight, and we flew to Sun Valley, and that was the first time we ever filmed for the documentary. We were just filming B-roll.
First time filming. You ended up being able to pull some stuff from the first time we ever went there for the documentary.
And that was in 2021.
Which was like June of 21, yeah. But then the first time we actually were like, okay, we are here filming for the documentary was that November.
Yeah, because I don't know if the audience knows, we actually did a video. We actually did a project in 2021. Our friend and executive producer on the Unega Tales of the Guardians movie, Lisa, she was just like, hey, if I send you guys to Sun Valley, would you film a promo video for this nonprofit rescue organization? We said, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. They're dogs.
Fun. We love dogs. We were fostering a ton at the time, too. So it was just perfect.
So we went out 2021. What'd you say, June?
Yeah.
June of 2021. And so we filmed, and we were filming on our old equipment, but they had puppies. They were at their old location, and it was just a completely different vibe. We had Gary there, too, and it was just kind of, I'm so grateful when I started editing the actual film that we had that content.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first time we ever did it. And there's a video I'm going to try and link it somewhere on the frame, but there's a video that you can see from the first time we ever went out to the rescue.
Yeah. And what was, well, I guess not cool, but when we were there, that was right after they got a huge influx of dogs from the Buell farm, and that got brought up a lot in the documentary.
Yeah, don't give it away though. Don't give too much away from the film. We got to build a little bit of suspense for people.
But that did get brought up a lot, and that was right. We were there, relatively shortly afterwards, and that's so many of those dogs that we met that first time we were there were those dogs that we talked about a lot in the film.
And the puppies.
Yeah, and the puppies.
Because that was the only time we've ever filmed puppies. And so having that when they were, puppies got brought up a bunch too, including the Buell farm.
That's the only time. Yeah, because every other time if they had puppies, they're normally at a foster or something.
Yeah.
But they have puppies right now. So we're hoping they'll still be there in a couple weeks.
That would just be the best.
There's like puppies. We were around like young dogs while we were filming, but not like a true...
Not like a sub 10 thing. Yeah. Under 10 pound Great Pyrenees. And they are adorable.
Oh, so cute.
They're so cute.
So cute.
But so we're going to link the video somewhere here so you guys can see it, because that kind of, I guess it does a pretty good job of explaining Unega.
Oh, yeah, no, it does. And it was our first,
that was our introduction to Unega.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't know anything.
Oh, no, we did not know Tiffany. We didn't know, we just were learning about what a livestock guardian dog, what the heck is a Great Pyrenees. All of that was brand new to us at the time. It
was literally, Lisa was just like, hey, I go to this rescue when I go to Sun Valley. Would you guys go film? They're about big white dogs, and we're like, yeah, I'll easy.
But like all dogs, so yes.
But we had no idea, and so it's kind of funny to look at how everything then transpired. And then fast forward, we got Mama Faye in 2021, November of 21. Yeah, so that was our first Great Pyrenees Akbash was Mama Faye, and we got her in 2021, and then that's kind of how the whole project started. Because then we got Mama Faye, we got much more involved.
And we started talking about it more as a possibility. and then realizing they have a film festival. And then it was like, I feel like we talked about it for like a year or so, just like, oh, do we do it? Oh, I don't know. Oh, like that would be super cool. But it wasn't like we weren't going after it.
Well,
And
that's
then
'cause
finally we were like, what do we like? Why? Why not?
yeah. Well, Tiffany also told us that there were other film crews.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, there was like other documentary. I don't know if they were
Yeah.
there were other movies that were being developed, and she was constantly having like people like film crews and stuff come out.
Yeah.
But none of these projects were ever getting done.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, let's film. Oh, let's film that same thing again 3 months later. Oh, let's film it. So it's just like, I kind of feel like maybe the production crews might have been a little bigger than we were, but we actually got a project done.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, sitting in Tiffany's, and we're just like, hey, what if we filmed a documentary about you guys and put it in the Sun Valley Film Festival? And that was always the target was, hey, get something in the film festival.
Yeah, yeah, and it was just Sun Valley, just for the hyper locality of it, and because we want to, spread awareness of the dogs, and doing that in more film festivals would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because this is happening in other states as well. But showing it to Sun Valley first, and just the people there. A lot of people I think are aware, but a lot of people aren't.
Do you remember when we went to the Sun Valley Film Festival last year in 2023? And true story, we go and get our film passes because festival passes because we had the insider we had one of the passes, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we showed up, and the ladies at the front desk. So we just made it to Sun Valley, and our first stop was drop stuff at the Airbnb and then go get your film pass. And the ladies were like, oh, like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, we're working on a film. It's about I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Unega and the dogs? And the lady behind the counter was like, oh my God, this is something like, why has nobody told this story before? Like oh my, I was just like, whoa. I was not excited, or I'm sorry, I was not ready for that level of excitement. And so there's a lot of people in Sun Valley that do know about the dogs.
There's a lot of people that trip that we talked to. I feel like we were walking around one day in between films and like stumbled into some store, and that's when we met those two ladies that were like, you can interview me. Like, I want to talk about this. Yeah. This is such an important cause, whatever. But there are a lot of people that felt strongly,
like very strongly and very passionate about
in favor of what
in favor. Yeah. And so that was kind of one of those things like, okay, so it's like we're filming a film, or I'm sorry, we're making a movie, and it does seem like there is a market and an audience for it. So kind of forgot where we started when we went off on this like tangent on this, but some great stories from back in the day.
No, definitely.
I think when we started, we were talking about how our first time ever filming for that's what it was.
Yeah, it was
the first set was
meeting Bubba, and
that was November of 22.
Yeah, November of 22. End of November. It was like almost December.
Yeah,
because we flew down for that one nighter. We met Bubba, and we're like, wow.
We didn't go to meet Bubba though. We literally
no. We just were like, oh, with all the sanctuary dogs, and then we're just making our rounds to all the other dogs that were adoptable or were gonna be or were gonna be adoptable. And we met Bubba. I think we were going on walks with like Tiffany and Nicole.
That's right.
And then we did one, and they I think Tiffany let Bubba and Joy out. And
those are some of the coolest. So that was our first ever trip.
That was our first time ever meeting him. That was our first ever. Yeah.
And some of those shots are I think honestly, some of my favorite shots from the entire documentary, because it was such an interesting terrain because it was snowy, but it wasn't snow covered. Yeah. So you could see kind of like the grass and the foliage and all the other stuff, but it was still snow on the ground, and we were all bundled up. And those shots of Tiffany, we have the photos as well of her. Yeah. Those are some of my favorite. And of course, because we adopted Bubba, obviously when I was doing the editing, I tried to include him selfishly as much as I could. He is a good looking man. A lot of people said he's a good looking man. He's also the poster because he's a good looking man. But that was,
But yeah, we met him, and we were like, nope, we have 4 dogs at home, and we know we're going to move soon, but our current house is small, cannot bring home this giant beast. Came back like a week later, because we had a trip planned with your mom and my brother and sister.
Yeah.
We come back. Then we're like, hey guys, what if we adopt Bubba? And they were all just like, yep.
You should do it.
Which we didn't expect them to all be on board. And then it was like,
even when we came home, we were like, we shouldn't do it.
Oh yeah, we shouldn't do it.
We're like, no, we shouldn't do it.
We're like,
but we're nonstop talking about like, we should probably just do this. Yeah. And then when we went back that week later, we went and got him. We're like, what do you guys think? And everybody was like, you should do it. Go get him. And we're like, okay.
And we talked to Tiffany about it, and she's like, oh my God, that'd be perfect. And the time before, too, so I don't know if we said this at all before in the YouTube video, but Bubba was friends with Sunny. So our dog Sunny, who we had adopted a handful of months prior, he's a Great Pyrenees mix, so he's a lot smaller. And Tiffany, we meet Bubba and we're like in love with Bubba. And then she's like, oh, like Bubba was friends with Sunny when Sunny was here.
Bubba protected Sunny because Sunny is an undersized, because he's got that Australian cattle dog in him. Australian Shepherd in him. And so he's a lot smaller. He's only like 65 pounds or so. And so Bubba was his protector if Sunny was getting bullied.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh my
like,
God.
Are you kidding me? Like,
could it be any more perfect to go get this man right now?
Yeah.
And then fast forward, we did that trip at the very end, right before Christmas, with that same private jet company, and they organized that flight back. That one's well documented. That we really went into detail in that YouTube video.
We did. It was crazy just how often we were there in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like when we started filming, like we were there very end of November, very beginning of December, very end of December.
Yep. And you know what my favorite part about all of that is? We still had no idea what we were doing.
Oh, it was just filming B-roll, but so much of that, like.
So much of it made the film. We had no idea
what we were doing. We were just, okay, film this. Oh, let's go on a walk. Oh, let's go this. Oh, let's do this. And it ended up being, I feel like, so much of the B-roll of the film.
Well, because we literally were like, okay, we don't know what the movie's about. Sorry. We don't know what the movie's about. We don't know who we're interviewing. Obviously, we knew we were going to interview Tiffany, but we're like, we have no idea or direction on where we're going. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we go and film everything. So we're like, oh, you guys are feeding dogs? Get the camera here. We're filming. Oh, you guys are scratching dogs? Well, I was just there. Yeah. And I feel like we were constantly just.
And before, like after later trips, we had much more of like, okay, now like the snow's gone. So let's just like film some shots of the dogs without snow. And oh, now we need to film, obviously, like the sheep day. And there's so many other things to film. But we realized like things that we needed. But then there's so much that we didn't like realize we needed that you had just gotten from in the beginning when we were all.
See, if we were smart, we really, this was the first time we've ever attempted something like this, right? So we really didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't know what we did know. And when we were done filming the entire project, you went through every single clip. When I brought it into Resolve to the editing software, you categorized and named everything, so we knew what the conditions were, what the dogs were, and everything. If we were smart, we would have been doing that along the way, because most productions will actually do that, where they're like, oh, okay, like, so you know exactly. And then I could look at it and be like, do I have this? Do I not have this? And we never did that. So we were always just like, film. Yeah. Just film. Doesn't matter. Just film it. And if we use it, we use it. If we don't use it, cool. We don't use it.
Yeah. I went through every clip of B-roll. When Nikola, it was right after Mila was born, and you were doing
I was shooting an event for Alaska Airlines.
Yeah. And I sat up there with her on my lap, and we went through it was like 10 trips of B-roll. It was a lot. And then it was like categorizing. So, okay, if Bubba's in this one, or if, Olaf is in this one.
Or Maverick, or Joy.
A dog is mentioned. Or I also need to so I put like tags on it. So like snow, dog, or
location,
scenery, location. If it was a specific person, a specific dog that I could recognize, like, hey, this is, this is Joy, or this is whomever. And yeah, that was, but I kind of like weirdly like that kind of stuff.
No, that's like right up your alley, but it made my life so much easier, because when I sat to go do the actual edit, I'm just like, we watched back all of the interviews, and so we heard everything that everybody said, and I think it's pretty well documented, that huge poster board that I had behind me. Yeah. So I would just kind of base everything off of that. But then as I'm building out the story, I'm just like, okay, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Okay, cool. I really need a shot of this. And so I would just type in the keyword, and you put sticky notes on my monitor, and you're like, here's all, because we didn't want to do like too many keywords, because then
some keywords I like short, because you have to type it in every time. So some are like, oh, Nikola, this means this.
UMDR.
This means this,
or this. Yeah. And so I had this short list of these little sticky notes that were right in front of me on my monitor, and I'm just like, okay, I'm looking up that keyword, and then all the clips would pop up. And then I was just like, okay, great, we're going to grab that, we're going to take that, we're going to take that. So that really did make my life a lot easier. But that's post-production. And so when we came back from that interview trip that we did, and then we interviewed Fiona, I think the trip later, but we never previewed that one until I sat down and previewed it. Yeah. But we watched all 6 interviews, made sticky notes, and kind of categorized, or had like sound bites, and kind of had a breakdown of from this minute to this minute, from the second to the second, they talked about this, so that I kind of had like I could just work off of it. But when it came time to like sit down and do the edit, I don't think we ever said this, but like I sat down and I think in 10 days, was it even 10 days? It might have been 6 days or 7 days. It was like 6 or 7. Mila had just been born.
I think you got most of it done in 6 or 7 days, but I think there was a small gap because then we went to Trailing of the Sheep.
We did go to Trailing because we and we wanted to make sure. So Trailing was October 16th or something like
6th or something.
Oh, you're right. October 6th. You're right. And we wanted to make sure that we actually had a presentable project that we could show all of our people in Sun Valley.
Yeah.
So like Tiffany, Brian, Fiona. I don't think Fiona actually made it.
No,
anyways, we wanted to have something so that we could see like, hey, what do the people that were involved in this movie think? Like, did we do a good job?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. Or are we completely off base with what we're talking
everybody
about?
Was like, you didn't twist anybody's words like they can in some stuff, but just make sure everybody listens to the messaging and stuff and are okay with it. And everybody loved it. But also looking back on that rendition that we were, so proud of, everybody loved and everybody thought was awesome, compared to it now is just like
night and day.
Wow. It was so awesome then and everybody loved it. And now it is just like such a different beast. It's just so much better and cooler. And I'm really excited for all those people that saw the first one that was like, oh my God, this is amazing, to see it now, because it's just like...
The version that they saw was not color corrected, and it didn't have any original audio. So
the color looked extra bad.
Well, yeah,
because we displaying poorly.
It was horrible.
It wasn't color corrected.
It was awful. So, but I didn't want to show them log footage, so I did like a basic color grade, and so that's what they saw with stock audio and stock music, and they were just like, I think there were tears.
There was only like 4 songs. Everybody cried.
Everybody cried. Every single person cried, and they were just like blown away. And we didn't know if they were going to have any constructive criticism for us or what they were going to say. Like, I kind of was expecting something, just like, oh yeah, like, I don't know if you talked about this the right way or this or that. Yeah. I was just expecting
like, you're too harsh, like you were too harsh on this or too harsh on this, and we got like it was like you could have laid in more. Yeah,
and I'm just like, wow, which is great, because that's exactly where we wanted to sit. Was just like,
we want to respect everybody's,
because we're okay. Just to put it out there, we are not anti-rancher, and we are not anti these dogs should not work.
Yeah,
like they should work. There's a lot of amazing ranchers and ranching operations out there. That's just not even a question that's getting brought up. It's we're just talking about specifically like the bad ones and why they're able to get away with it and why Unega exists as an organization.
Yeah.
So I feel like when we saw that everybody liked the direction that we went, it was kind of like, okay.
It was just like a sigh of relief. Like, okay, like I'm so happy, these people on this side and these people on this side, everybody's like, yeah, like that's the story. That's right. That's what I wanted to.
I think what was cool too. So obviously our film's about the Great Pyrenees and Akbash and the livestock guardian dogs, but a key players in the general environment in Blaine County. Well, I don't know if it's all of Idaho, but definitely like the Blaine County area is wolves. Mm-hmm. And so Brian Bean and Fiona Bean, I think, were the only ones. I think the others kind of touched on wolves very brief. And Susanna. And so it was one of those things where they just kind of like when we did our interviews, they brought up wolves organically.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, we learned a lot.
Like
I didn't know anything about wolves.
Oh, I didn't know anything about wolves. I knew that, guardian dogs protect, make wolves go away.
Yeah.
Like whatever. But we learned so much just about the laws surrounding wolves in Idaho. And it was like, we had so much wolf content that we like accidentally acquired. We were joking. We're like, we could make a short cut on wolves.
Yeah. Well, but the funny thing about that is because I remember we didn't necessarily ask questions about wolves. Our questions, so when we're doing a sit-down interview, you were doing the interviews, but we would write our questions beforehand. You're like, okay, this is the question. It's broad enough to be like, let you kind of go in whatever direction you want, but also specific enough that, ultimately we want to hear about something. And so these people just brought these wolves up, and I just remember sitting there and I'm just like, how are we going to use any of this?
Oh yeah, and I think one question I forget how it was worded, but it was like, what does a livestock guardian dog do? So we have some really broad like, what is it? What do they do? Because we want to be able to educate people in the film as well that don't know. And I think a lot of times during that segment, people would bring up wolves, and then just kind of go like, oh yeah, so they're protecting wolves, and then why is this so important? Is because of
this and this and that. Yeah.
Wolves.
but then when we did that screening in Sun Valley, Brian was just like, I love the way you guys incorporated all that element about wolves.
Yeah.
You went into it enough to explain it, but not into it because it's a slippery slope. Because if you introduce it and you don't give enough information about it, you could just you leave your audience like, what was the point?
Yeah.
But we
if you do too much, then it's like
you've lost the purpose.
You've really just sidetracked here.
Yeah. So that was really cool, which is funny that we bring it up because part of me thinks our next documentary could potentially be about wolves.
I love that. I mean, we learned so much and it was so interesting
and the laws in Idaho.
So important. Like not gonna get into that right now, but the laws surrounding wolves and what's happening to wolves are terrible, and
there's just so much that they do too that people I don't think people know,
and that they do, and that affects, like, adversely affects the dogs and stuff. And I think Brian shared that one story that is that story in the film?
Which one?
That one group of wolves that came in.
I don't think that ended up making. You know what? I haven't watched it all the way through in a while, and it all is kind of a blur. I know the exact story that you're talking about, but I don't know what made the final cut or not. But long story short, wolves, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were being hunted, and all of this other stuff was happening. So they were going in places they were never supposed to be in the first place.
Well, it's because it was a bounty on bounty.
Well, yeah.
Bounty on wolves, but then
a government.
Yeah, so people could kill them, but then there was this one. He was explaining that, like, the sheep ranchers, herders, they know where the wolves are. There's this wolf pack and this wolf pack and this wolf pack and this wolf pack, and this one's probably in this area and this one's probably in this area. And I'm doing a very, like, me being still roughly pretty uneducated, explanation of this, and we know that these wolves will be in this area and these wolves will be in this area, and so and our dogs or our sheep are here, and so they're probably 99.5 whatever percent gonna be fine. And then it was people came in and killed the alpha wolf.
Yep.
And then you just had left them just with the younger wolves, and the young wolves were like, I don't know what the heck to do. And so instead of staying in their area that they would have naturally stayed in, they were going dispersed, and they were going in different areas. And that's when he had some wolves that
he had livestock depredation as a result, because the wolves were in the wrong spot.
Well, they never would have been.
They were never been there.
If nature if things were going naturally, they never would have been there.
Yeah.
And that was really eye-opening, because it's like, not only, is this awful for wolves and all of that, but messing that up affects the livestock more. So it's really confusing too.
Well, it's one web.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like this. Like, if you impact the wolves, I know we're kind of gotten a little bit off topic here, but this is just
everybody. If you talk about LGDs, you will get off topic.
You will get off topic for sure. Well, because that whole area, and I mean, I say that whole area because we know that area. I'm assuming it's probably the same in Texas and Wyoming and everywhere. But if you influence the wolves, they have their natural, instincts, order. They have their hierarchy. They have their order, and they're going to do this. And if they do what they're supposed to do, they become predictable. But if you influence and somebody comes in and changes what they do, then they become unpredictable, which means that they then impact the other things. Just like you were saying, now you have dogs that might have to interact with wolves that never would have had to interact with wolves, because in sheep in areas that are now wolf places, which they never would have been.
It's insane. And I need to refresh, I feel like when we're interviewing people, my wolf knowledge was a little bit, a little bit better than it is now, but yeah, it was very eye-opening, but would be a fascinating documentary.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And the more you learn about wolves, the more you realize how just amazing
wolves are. Yeah.
They are. Yeah. As like as a species, and their impact that they have. It's really cool. So maybe that might be, we're kind of thinking we might do that as a follow-up documentary. We'll see how this one goes. Let's just screen this. Let's wrap this up, bring this home, and then we can go into detail about what's next. Oh, this is kind of fun.
It's kind of fun.
I'm enjoying this. It's just like a very casual conversation. I hope our audience is getting a little bit of enjoyment out of this too. I know it's just the two of us having conversation, but it's all the stuff how would we have ever brought in all of this wolf stuff in a YouTube video? Like, we wouldn't, because when we learned that during the actual filming, when we filmed Suzanne, when we filmed Fiona and Brian, I think probably one of the funniest stories of like now like pivoting to funny stories and funny things that happened during the documentary. I think you already know where I'm going with this one. Was we sat and we interviewed Brian Bean.
Yeah.
And he's a rancher at Lava Lake Ranch. I forget the full name, but the Lava Lake anyways. And we asked him a couple questions about LGDs, and he knows the project's about LGDs, and we just spiral. And the next thing you know, we are fully talking about nothing but wolves for about 45 minutes. And then Brian is just like, finishes his thought, turns to the camera, and turns to us and says, well, we're going to take a break here. And so you got pretty much like 2 minutes of information for your current documentary, but I've got a bunch of stuff for your next one. You probably won't be able to use any of this. And we're just like, well, yeah, kind of. That is true.
It was fascinating.
It was so fascinating.
Everything he said, it's like you don't even want to be like, you're off topic because you're just so intrigued.
Well, he's also just, he tested better than everybody else tested better. He was everybody's like universal favorite speaker. He speaks in just this amazing way. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know, kind of like John Dutton from Yellowstone. Like he just speaks and everybody listens. Yeah. And so we didn't want to interrupt him or influence what he was saying. So we're like, yeah, just go. But he ended up bringing it back to the LGDs, and it was awesome. Oh, that was probably one of my favorite things. Was like we're literally shooting. We're like we don't know how long this interview is going to go for, and we're about an hour in, and we take our first break, and he goes, "Yep, you're probably not going to be able to use any of what we just talked about." I was just like, "Okay."
That was by far the longest interview. I think by the end, you guys were like, "We have 1 minute left on this SD card."
Yeah, well, because we never even came close to shooting through. All our SD cards were empty when we were doing this, but. For whatever reason, the card that we put in the audio recorder, I just look over at Brian, and Brian has to put on a piece of paper.
Other Brian.
Other Brian. Brian Carey, our assistant, our friend that was there with us. He's just like, I think he either texted me or wrote on a piece of paper and looked over and said, 2 minutes on the SD card or something like that. And I was just like, oh no. Like, we need to wrap this up, and we need to record like 30 seconds of room tone. Yeah. And so we're just like, okay, Bella, we're going to just like take this home now and get this over with. Yeah. So I think that was probably the funniest thing that happened. I don't know. I mean, it's
not being able to find sheep was kind of our tire giving out and us being stranded was kind of funny.
That was a good one.
The fact that the person we ran into was friends with Brian Bean, who saved us that day, was kind of funny. What else? I mean, just almost not being able to find the sheep that one day after multiple trips of not finding sheep.
Well, that was just it was
kind of humorous.
It was so sad that it was hilarious. Like you just you know, like, hey, we talked about sheep so much during the filming of this movie, and we don't have a single frame of sheep, and you're just like, okay, are we really about to make like it was the funny thought of just like, are we about to make a movie talking about sheep and talking about LGDs and not have a single frame of sheep?
Yeah. And then the debate of do we go to trailing of the sheep or not?
Yeah,
because that was like we're supposed to have the documentary done because I think you did the first submission before.
No,
or was it
I had to do it. It was due on the 27th of October, and we were there. I don't remember the dates, actually. Maybe it was something else.
Well, it doesn't matter. But either way, we were like, do we get it? Like, it's so...
All I remember was we...
done, basically.
Yeah, we didn't have very long.
Or you'd have to be done just minus any trailing of the sheep stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, is it worth going and filming that and doing that or not? And then Mila had just been born. And then, so finally we decided, okay, you're just going to go.
Yeah, I was going to take I was just going to go fly, just me, and film it. And then we're like, well, you guys you've been on every other trip.
Yeah. And I mean, she's a good baby. So she was like 3-4 weeks old, 3.5 weeks old, I think. And she was like, awesome. Let's go. Let's do it. And it was awesome. She got to meet everybody. And
I'm so glad we did that, though, because some of those shots were just so cool. Yeah. Just seeing the sheep running down Main Street.
It was really cool. It kind of ties it back to home for a lot of, especially if they're not like some people seeing it if they... Well, hopefully there's a ton of people that see it, but
340 people at the Opera House.
If they're not super, super, super local, but you know, they go to catch them, but they're not hiking out in the mountains and they don't run, you know, those things aren't familiar. It's cool to be like, oh my God, I was just on that street earlier today.
Yeah.
And that's in the film, which I don't think we're going to get that much, you know, from a different documentary.
No, I don't think so. At least not at the Sun Valley Film Festival.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. That was a really cool thing. Just like that whole trailing of the sheep. And we also learned a whole bunch during that too. I mean, the whole project was just one massive learning experience.
Yeah.
It was, well, we learned about how to
Do a
actually
documentary.
do a
What would
documentary.
do different? What we
Everything.
liked. We learned about wolves. We learned about dogs. We learned about sheep. We learned about
Ranching.
We learned about everything.
We learned how ranching, like it was just such a cool thing. I could not, if you're sitting at home and there's something you even just kind of care about and you're like, or a filmmaker or whatever. And I know we've had quite a few people reach out to us. They're like, hey, I've always wanted to film a documentary. Like, how do you guys do it? And just start, just do it.
You just do it. And
literally do it and
you'll
figure it out.
later. Like,
I promise you, we had zero idea. All we knew what to do, we knew how to compose a shot. We knew how, we know how to film something. And, but we didn't know how to film like a movie. And like, I think I've said it in multiple videos, we were supposed to be a short.
Yeah.
And we just kept filming. We just kept filming because we're like, hey, you don't know how much you need and what you're going to have. So let's just keep filming. And here we are, 88 minutes or 87, whatever it was.
Yeah. Also, Nikola says he thought it was going to be a short, but for whatever reason, we didn't communicate, I guess, for like months. And like, I was under this impression that it was not a short. I thought it was going to be a full feature-length film. And Nicola was like, no, I thought it was going to be a short. I was like, when did we talk? I mean, when did we talk about this?
I think at one point it was brought up by the film festival.
That was later on, though. That was after you'd already done like a cut, and you're like, I have too much now.
Yeah, because we talked to people at the film festival because through our team, somebody knew people that were. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't get in because we knew somebody, but we did know people, and we're like, hey, like what kind of content? And they're like, oh, it'd be great if you guys did a short. And we're just like, laughs, and we're already 75 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that is not a short, and I cannot cut this down, and this deserves to be a full feature.
Yeah.
And but I think I was really critical because I was sitting obviously at all the interviews. Yeah. I was operating a camera. You and I were writing all the questions, and I just always had my editor hat on, and I'm always thinking to myself, I'm just like, how am I going to do this? And so in my mind, I think I was overly critical of just like, we don't have enough. Oh, it's not. I think
that must be why. And it was like, I mean, for me too, it was like, if for whatever reason it's not a full length, it'll be something.
It'll be a really good short.
We'll have something, that is a film of sorts. But
I'm just happy that it went full feature. I think sometimes when we tell people that have seen like trailers or tips and just random stuff, they're like, this is the first time you guys have done something like this? I'm like, yeah. Like, we literally come from the world of corporate video.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you're a company and you're doing something, an instruction manual or video manual or an employee highlight. I'm like, those are pretty clear cut. Those are pretty easy. Like, we live in that like 3 to 7, not even minute long video. And then we're like, we just skipped short film and we just went straight. Like, what if we just went full?
Yeah.
I guess there was that miscommunication where it's like, I was like, oh, maybe it's a short, I always wanted it to be a full feature. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was just like, I don't know if we'll get it. And you also have to think about it too, so I'm editing it, right? How do you make a video? People struggle. Like, we watch our YouTube videos, they don't get watched all the way through and they're only a couple of minutes long or 3 minutes or 4 minutes. And it's just like, wow, like how am I going to make something that somebody is going to want to sit there and watch for 90 minutes? And I have to keep them gripped. They have to like be attentive. Mm-hmm. I have to make them feel something. There's just a million different things and variables that come into it. And I'm just like, can we really do that? It was kind of daunting. And now I think that was my only concern. I was never really concerned about like the cinematography standpoint because Idaho is beautiful. We were very fortunate to be filming in just stunning scenery and just constantly getting good shots. So I knew the shots were going to be good. We knew we had a composer, so we knew the music was going to be good. We knew we were getting a professional color, so we knew the color was going to be good. Yeah. It really just came down to what a movie really is, and that was the story. Yeah. And my thought was always like, is the story going to be good enough?
The hard part was we knew this like the broad story. Like, we know, okay, we were talking about this and we want people to walk away, with this and this and this information to make their own decisions of stuff. And like, we had that, but it's hard to the documentary. So you're not like, oh, what's the timeline of stuff where you're going to share these specific stories. We knew, oh, this interview had this heartbreaking story of this dog, or so-and-so said something really informational, like informational.
Yeah. Informative
about this. And, then we need to include this to tie it all together or whatever. But how are you going to put all that together into something?
Well, because when you write a narrative, if we're filming like a narrative, like we wrote a movie, Like we have a script, we have a screenplay, we have everything. We know we can shoot in whatever order we would want. We know like, hey, this at this moment in time in the film, this is going to happen. And with the documentary, you can write it as much as you want, and we kind of do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But you are subject completely to what your people are giving you.
Yeah. And then I think when you were, well, first of all, when you're editing, everything was just, it was just great. I feel like one thing that was cool was that there wasn't that many, obviously we added some more stuff later after trailing the sheep and whatever, but there wasn't that many huge changes from your first, just your first 15 minutes and your first 30 minutes and first 45 minutes. It didn't get changed around that much. I feel like there was a few smaller things, like
we changed a few. There's a few things that we brought.
A little more drama is not the word, but
hearts. We just needed something to hit closer to home. Yeah,
because you had so much good stuff, but it's hard because you want to entice people early on, but you also need to explain to them, hey, this is what a livestock guardian dog is. Hey, this is what Unega Mountain Dog is. Yeah. Like the person who knows nothing about anything, to make them enticed. You can't just jump in.
Yeah. It was, I don't know if we ever even talked on the channel. When I sat down to do the edit, when I did it was, I work best at night. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't start editing until 10 in the morning. Or I'm sorry, 10 at night.
You would I would go to bed. Like me and Mila would go to bed. You'd sometimes watch an episode of whatever we were watching.
I would, yeah.
It was like the bedtime routine. But then instead of you going to bed, you were then just gone.
I would go to my desk, and then I would watch YouTube videos or whatever just to get the motivation going. And then the next thing you know, I'm in it editing, no idea where we're going. And the first night I did it, I think I started at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I think I edited until like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I had 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And what I did was I would send you at the end of the night, right before I would go to bed, I would write out this just massive email, and I would send it to you and Brian. Mm. Brian, our friend, not Brian Bean, Brian, our executive producer friend. And I would send you guys this email and be like, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I've done. I'd give you a recap, and then I'd send you guys the Vimeo link, and then you guys would watch it.
Yeah.
And then I would sleep in.
Notes, yeah. And then you could do the notes when you woke up.
Yeah. And then I would spend the day just hanging out, recharging, doing whatever. And then when the time came, I would do it again. And then I did my second night. I think it was like 10 to 5 or something like that.
You had one night where you're an absolute maniac. And
I didn't go to bed.
You did not go to bed. And we were doing an apple cider press day at our house with our families. You just didn't sleep.
Yeah. I remember just grabbing meal at 7 a.m. and I was just like, okay, let's just start our day. And I edited through and that was when we got it to 45 minutes because we showed the families.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because we showed the families that day, the first 45 minutes. And then I just stayed up at night. I would talk to the wall. I would talk to whatever dog was sitting with me, and I would just hate my life and existential crisis after existential crisis. I'm like, why are we doing this? And then you just kind of hit a rhythm.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, like we talked about, like I didn't know what I was going to do.
Well, you have so much stuff. It's like, I just had to start. I just had to start. And once I started, this goes back to what we just said. Like if you're ever thinking of doing a documentary or a project or write a story or a book or a poem or whatever, just start. Yeah. Because when you start, what happened to me was I was just like, okay, great. This person said this. Oh, because we had all those sticky notes and I had manuscripts because I printed everything out. I was just like, Tiffany said this. Oh, I know Nicole went into more detail on that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So then I would find the timestamp and I would go and grab Nicole's thing and I would put that in to follow up. So then I started building my story based on what the person was saying before. Mm-hmm. And then I would use that as a lead in. And then there were sometimes I would find this like moment where you have 2 or 3 people talking about the same thing. And then you just kind of let them go. I'm just like, where's a natural cut for them? Okay, cut right there. Great. And who's the next person that's going to pick up the story?
Yeah.
And it was just so cool because it almost starts editing itself because the story just starts developing and developing and developing. And then you're like, okay, we've gone really crazy here. Like, you need to give the audience a moment to because you can't hit, it's a documentary.
Yeah.
But you can't just be like information. You have to give
a reprieve.
A reprieve. You have to rest. Okay. Whew.
Look at something pretty.
Yeah. Here.
Dogs.
Look at dog. And then that was kind of cool too, because I'd never had to do that because our short form stuff is just like, you don't have long. You just punch out everything. But this was just like a very calculated, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 minute long break from the action of, okay, this is just something. It could be totally off topic. It could be kind of fun. It could just be a different thing just to let the audience rest. And then you do that. You just do whatever you want, and then you just bring it back in, and the next thing you know, you've built up the tension again, and it all capitulates, I think, at the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie, it crescendos, it builds, and you hear snippets throughout the whole thing. And then at the 1 hour mark, I think, is right where we get to our most like, it's not really even most dramatic, but most intense.
Yeah.
And the stakes are at their highest. And then we just go to the resolution and we resolve. So it's just like a 3-piece, like you have your intro, your middle, and your end.
Yeah.
So
there's specific parts that like I've seen them so many times. Every single time I'll be watching it and it's like you get so we were talking about this earlier. It's like we've seen the film, so you obviously way more than me, but I've seen it so many times. And then you start watching it and you're like, obviously I love this. I'm excited to watch this, but I've seen this, it's like you've just seen it so many times in such a short period of time. So you're going to watch it again. And then, but it's crazy is after like, 5 or so minutes, like it's like I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. I'm so enticed. I know which areas have made me cry before in the past, especially like the ending. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not a big crier either. And I'm like, I'm just not going to cry this time. And then but then I like forget for a moment, get back into it. And then I'm crying.
Yeah.
And it's every single time.
I think this last time when we watched it, the final time before we sent it off for the final submission, because we submitted, I feel like one thing that I don't know if we ever said it, but we submitted a work in progress film. Mm-hmm. So when we submitted back in October, we didn't have color and we didn't have music.
Yeah. We
had the story within like 99. I think.
And we didn't have the voiceover yet.
And we didn't have the voiceover.
Well, we had a placeholder, but not the
That was
voiceover.
me. I did the voiceover. And it wasn't very good, but it did its purpose. The pacing was there and the messaging was there, and so we just rolled with it. And so we submitted that. So the film festival we confirmed with them before we did it that we could do work in progress.
Yeah.
And so they watched the work in progress. So then when we sent our final, like, this is it, this is done, we'd watched it so many times. And I think when it ended, you and I just looked at each other and we were both crying.
I don't think, well, also getting the music, right?
Yeah.
I'd seen so much the film with the music, but I don't think the last song was in yet.
I don't think
the last couple times I'd seen it. And so then, it's still making me cry, whatever. And then this last time when we went to watch it, I think it was the first time I had seen it with that song at the end.
Well, that's because our composer, just, he and I were obviously going back and forth a whole bunch about the whole movie, like, okay, do this, blah, 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 blah. And he said, because we had a certain amount of budget that, X amount of dollars gets you X amount of music. And he said, hey guys, if you're okay with it, I want the final song to be a 12-minute, I don't know, masterpiece or roller coaster, but it's a 12-minute piece. It's not a song. It's a piece. And we're going to go way past our budget, and I'm not going to charge you guys for the extra. We did it or agreed upon, but the movie needs this.
Yeah.
Then that was him saying, like, I don't care that it's like 9 extra minutes more than we originally agreed. He said the movie needed it, and it's amazing. Andrew just
it was incredible.
That was just that brings chills just even thinking back to how it ends.
And like just the first time back to Andrew, like when he did the intro too. Yeah. That was just like such a game changer. I think for me, I didn't realize, I mean, I don't know, I'm learning a lot, and I didn't realize how much, what is it even called? Custom music, like
original score.
Original score. How big of a difference an original score is to, I found this song that fits this, like what I'm trying to say right now really well.
Yeah.
Because you put some music in originally and I was like, oh wow, this is great. Like this music is great. And I just didn't understand how an original score like.
Well, because normally.
I mean, it's custom. I get it. I thought it was like, oh, it's a custom song. Just like the songs you would download. I didn't realize how much it is in tune with what's happening, which is probably like really dumb. But I just didn't realize, like, until
but nobody thinks about that.
Oh my, like, wow, I get it now. Like, I get why.
Well, because we're so accustomed to. I'm a video editor, right?
Yeah.
First thing you do is you go and find your song, and you're like, okay, I'm editing to the beat of the song so that my cuts land on this.
Oh, true.
So that's kind of like what most people are kind of accustomed to and attuned to. That was not what we did. Like, I did not do that. Even with the filler songs that I did, I was just like, okay, how long do I want to sit on this scene or this shot? Okay, it doesn't line up with the hit. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then when Andrew took it and did it, it lined up.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was able to build it. So in his I mean, like you were saying, like if you use a predetermined piece, you're kind of pigeonholed to do just that. You have to use that and build the way that builds, and you have no leeway. I was able to just edit my piece the way I wanted it to, and then he would take my visual and he would make the audio for it, and he would build and add the big bass drum notes. Like every time we did a huge landscape shot, boom, there's huge drum.
That was just the biggest game.
Because you don't know how much.
And like subconsciously, because you're paying attention to what's happening. Like now, I feel like it's funny. Like we'll watch stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, this music, or oh, I really like how they did this. But normally, it's like you're watching something, and you're just watching like. Yeah, you're into what people are saying, like what's happening, what is hooking you in that moment, and you don't realize how much the music in the back, like that in the background, is
playing a role.
Yeah, playing a role in your mood and your everything.
Well, it can get like music, like in a really good movie or like a really well done music piece. It gets you like you might feel uneasy.
Yeah,
and there's so many tips and tricks. So like, yeah, when we were doing some like intense stuff that was happening in the documentary, we're talking about something that we needed to feel like. Again, you are always building some form of tension.
Yeah.
And yeah, Andrew would find like we would just find he would just write something that kind of makes you maybe feel a little uneasy or maybe builds and is very dramatic or just whatever.
Yeah.
And you as a viewer, of course that makes sense. Yeah. Of course, when you watch it for the first time, you're like, obviously that's the music that's there. But when you take that music away because you've seen that, you're just like, oh my God, like this is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Take the music out. It's just not at all.
Yeah. Because I remember we weren't sure. We're like, okay, music's expensive. Like, what are we going to do? Whatever. And we were trying to figure all that out right as he had done the first, like, the intro.
I think the first 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then we watched the first 2 minutes and we're like, well, we got to figure something out because this is...
We're going to find the budget. We are going to find the budget for this. Yeah. That was really great. But... yeah, there were so many elements, I think, that went into the making of this documentary. And we've had so many people just ask, like... I guess we've had a lot of friends too that kind of watched us do this along the way, and we've had all the all our YouTube people who watched it as well. And there's so many things to peel back and to understand and to be like, okay, when you're doing something of this scope, like what do you do? How do you do it? And so I remember some of our friends that would see certain clips and certain portions along the way. They're like, wow, this is great. And those people are going to have their minds blown because none of them have seen the final.
Yeah,
and that's just one of those things that I'm really excited for, but also I feel like we've had so many people ask questions on like, can we go into more detail about like they just didn't know. Just like you were saying, like how do people know? Like how do you do a original score? Where do you find somebody to do it?
Yeah.
How does the communication go? And there's just so many elements to it that's something I feel like we can really kind of talk about more so than just like, okay, here's us on a trip, which we did a pretty good job of documenting. It's like, hey,
and learning like how long that takes. Like I feel like for you, I mean, for me too, but I wasn't in that process. But for you, like learning, okay, I have to go back and forth with the colorist and with this person, It's not like, all right, I've done my thing, send it off, let me just watch it, and then be like, good or do this.
Well, because in a normal production, you don't. The person who's directing and operating the camera is also not the editor. Is not.
Yeah.
I mean, we were a really, 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 really small team, so we're all wearing a lot of hats. So. When I finished, that's the funniest thing is when I finished the edit and I put the story together, that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
No.
Not at all.
I spent
was just like, oh, now we got to watch it again. Now we got to watch it. Okay, now this part is done, so we need to watch this 15 minutes. Then this person did this, so we have to watch this. And you're just like, and it's so cool because you're seeing it evolve, but you're like, oh my God, I've watched the first 15 minutes 100 times.
Well, you also have to, and then it's not enough to just be like, oh, I didn't like it.
No.
You can't say that. You can. But you have like the hardest part. They're like, okay, then what? So it's like if I didn't like the color grade, I needed to put in detailed notes like
what you didn't like.
I think this was too magenta, or I think this was slightly too tinted to the green, or this was too dark, over underexposed, whatever. There's if I didn't like it, I needed to identify what I didn't like and how they can go and fix it, because these people were working for me. They're working for us, and that was kind of the coolest thing ever. Was if I say I didn't like it, we just say like, okay, fix it. And when we gave them instructions, and I think, that we got really good reviews, I guess, from our colorist and our composer. They both said that they really enjoyed working with us. And I think that might come down to the fact of our notes were just meticulous. Like if I didn't like something, I was telling you exactly. Like if I was working with Andrew on a song, I'd be like, no, I need you to move the snare hit, or I need this to change, or I need the tone. And then I would be like, reference this Hans Zimmer song from Pirates of the Caribbean. I really like seconds 38 to 1 minute and 12. I want that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, oh, do you kind of know, like, you know, can you imagine just like a little bit of this? No. It was just like, hey, I want it this way.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes the movie so special to us, is that it's what we wanted.
Oh yeah.
So I think that was really cool. I can't wait right now it's February 18th.
They saw Sun Valley post on Instagram today, and it was like, we can't wait to see you guys in 10 days. And I was,
oh my God,
10 days? Like,
oh
that
my
just
God.
seems, I feel like this has been so far, you know, like going to the film festival last year, we were already like so much through our filming process and through everything already, right?
Yeah.
And so just it's been a long awaited, and it's felt like it's been forever away, forever.
And now it's 10 days away.
And now it's 10 days away, and I was like, you're kidding me.
Well, because when we started in November of 2022,
Yeah.
Sun Valley Film Festival 2024 was always the target.
Yeah.
That was always the target.
But
and now it's just like, wow, tomorrow is 9 days away. So that's single digits.
Yep.
So I can't wait for 10 days from now when we get to finally present it.
It's going to be really cool seeing it on a big screen.
Yeah.
And I feel like what you got to do when we when we showed where we were at with the people that were in it when we were in Idaho for the Trailing the Sheep Festival. You got to like look around. You were in the back, right?
Yeah.
So you got to see
I was
people's
watching
reaction a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was towards the front. I had Mila, and it was like I didn't want to be like
staring at people.
What are you guys? So wiping his eyes over there.
Yeah.
I could see some stuff like peripherally, and like I'd look around every once in a while, but I didn't get to like, it wasn't like, oh, something sad happened, let me scan the room. And I don't know if I'll be able to do that in the festival.
Well, maybe we just have to maybe we should get seats at the very back.
It's going to be cool to see. Oh, and also have it be people that aren't involved in the film. They're just people.
Bystanders. Just randoms.
Just people. Like that.
People.
It's just so cool.
It is cool.
It's not, there'll be, friends there and family there and people involved in the film, but there'll also be just a ton of strangers there. And it's going to be really cool to see what they think about it.
I'm excited for, obviously, to show it, but then I don't know how long, like from the moment that the credits roll and all of that ends, I don't know how long it's going to be until we walk up
the Q&A, yeah.
to do the Q&A, but I'm just kind of excited to just look out. And I mean, like we've said, like you and I ball when we watch the end. The end it ends really well. It ends really well. And I just hope that you and I are put together.
Yeah.
enough to be presentable.
Yeah.
And I hope that the audience is very disheveled in the best way possible, because that means that we did a good job of telling a really good story. So that's going to be really fun. I'm excited. But anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed. So this is a little different video. We've never really done this before, but I think it was fun. We got to tell some of the great stories. So if you did make it to the very end of the video, comment below what your favorite moment from this video is. And then, like always, let us know in the question. Do you have questions about any element of this? Because
something we should elaborate more on, whether it's like,
and we can't give away spoilers. We're not giving spoilers. We're not going to talk about that.
Funny dog stories or sad stories or Nikola, what camera,
there's a video about that.
Okay, more specific, but like it could be technical, or it could be, tell me about this one dog, like anything.
Tell me about it, or what was the production workflow for post processing?
Yeah,
I mean
that's probably a good video. We talked about it a little bit.
We did, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
Which we didn't even know. So, anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed that one, and like always, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.